What's up guys, Steven Spikes, the Spike Signal here, coming at you with a couple tips for writing metal guitar bass from a songwriter's perspective, right now on Spike Signal. So the first tip relates to the bass actually doing something different than the guitar, which is always cool, and it was something that surprised me because when I was transcribing the song I was working on, I found that the bass during passages that the guitar was playing held note or hold notes for particular measures, the bass was playing the same root of those notes, but instead of holding the note, it was actually hitting it in eighth note fashion the entire time that the guitar was holding that note. And that did surprise me at first because in the track you totally can't tell. It just sounds like one solid, steady held thing. But it occurred to me that the bassist continually hitting that note is what makes the held guitar chord sound so consistent. Because the bassist is hitting that note over and over again in the fashion of eighth notes, it's keeping the volume, the attack, and the general distribution of frequencies, I guess you might say, all at a constant place, where if they just hit the bass note once and held it, that volume and that intensity could very well diminish. So it makes a lot of sense when thinking about it. But yeah, if you're writing a song, there might be a lot of reason to have the bass continually be wailing on whatever note they're hitting, even if the guitar is not doing that and the guitar is just holding chords. There's some utility to it, I think. The next tip and thing to keep in careful mind when playing either the bass or the guitar is that the bass ends up setting what the implied chord is of whatever particular passages you're playing. And an example I had when playing this was when playing a particular guitar part and swapping in and out of playing single notes and power chords. There was one single power chord I was hitting that sounded just really off and really kind of grindy compared to the bass. And I realized what was happening was that the bass was playing technically a different note than the root of the power chord that I was playing. So while the root of the power chord that I was playing sounded fine, that fifth above the root of the power chord I was playing did not sit nicely with what the bass was playing at all, because essentially the root of the power chord on the guitar was different than the note played on the bass. So I ended up having to omit that fifth of the power chord on the guitar in order to make things gel better. That was a little bit of a hassle because I had already gotten the part down by playing the power chord, so it took a couple cycles through being able to relearn essentially how to play the part in a context that sounded better with the bass. So just always keep that in mind. You really want your bass and rhythm guitar to sit well together, and if the bass and rhythm guitar are playing the same thing, that's of course easy, but sometimes they're not, and in those instances you just want to be careful to not make something that sounds kind of grindy and dissonant. Unless you're going for that, then that's a totally different story. The next thing I want to stress, and this is more of a rhythm thing in general, but I decided to put it with the bass because the bass kind of has to be lining up with the rhythm guitar for this to sound good, is creating a really punchy ending. Now there's a lot of ways to create a punchy ending where you utilize rests across all the instruments in order to give those brief moments of silence, and maybe even sometimes milliseconds of silence more accurately, in order to then hit again and again and again, in order to then bring back all the instruments hitting as one, the drums, rhythm guitar, and bass, a couple times in a certain manner to really end a song bombastically. You want to make sure to employ rests for the bass and the guitar in the right way, and one way you can do that is to utilize hits that are sometimes revolving around the on beats and other hits that are more so revolving or start, let's say, on the off beats. Alternating between focusing on the off beats and the on beats can really give you a cool push and pull of punch that can be very attractive at the end of a song. And even though this is a bunch of bass tips, I will say properly utilizing palm mutation on the rhythm guitar is also a great thing that can emphasize that punch even more. The final thing I wanted to stress to you guys today is that even though the bass is typically something that's holding the beat down, holding down an implied chord, while the guitar may be following along but doing different things, there's nothing wrong with doing really quick chord changes, or maybe I should say implied chord changes, on a bass too, because most bass lines are playing single notes. That affords bass, even more so than electric guitarists playing power chords, the ability to move very quickly from implied chord to implied chord. When you're playing a guitar, for instance, that's clean and you're playing all of the notes of an open chord, or if it's not an open chord, even more difficult to play all 6 strings at once, you can move a lot faster than that with power chords and with the bass. So don't be afraid to do those really quick movements in subtle instances within songs where it can be really beneficial. Most of the time the bass is going to be holding a note or a series of notes that aren't changing that quickly, but throwing in instances where the bass is moving very fast and the rhythm guitarists are following that to kind of make the whole song sound like it's just sort of moving and swirling down or up can be a really cool thing that's worth implementing in, say, transition sections, for instance, or even elsewhere if you want to try. All right, guys, that's been some bass tips from a songwriter's perspective. Hope you all got something out of it. If you did, I'd really appreciate you leaving a like and subscribing, as well as leaving a comment, because that would help me out a lot. And I'll see you right here next time on Spike Signal. Thank you.